Welcome, guys. Today we're going to be talking about prompting. What is prompting? What are we doing? What are we doing with prompting? Should we phone a friend? Okay, we need help from the virtual audience.
So you're trying to get a desired behavior to occur, but that could be through, a verbal prompt, a physical prompt, several different ways to do it. But
Yes, so we're trying to add a stimuli to the environment that would cause a behavior to become more likely to happen, right? So that's what prompting is all about. We're adding a stimuli to the environment. Mark named several stimuli that we're going to be doing to get a behavior from our VIP. So when we think about antecedents and consequences, where would this fit into your behavior support plan? Come on in, Marion. Where would prompting fit in on your behavior support plan and in your work? Does it come before behaviors or does it come after behaviors? Yeah, it comes before behaviors. So when we're thinking about prompting, we're talking about antecedent stimulus that happens before the behavior. And it's only considered a prompt if it's likely to generate a behavior that we want to generate. What is a prompt? Well, let's get into the training a little bit, and then we'll get into kind of more examples of what we're talking about. So prompting, and there's a lot of, as Mark said, there's a lot of different ways to go about this. So prompt, and this is kind of like our ABA jargon definition. It's kind of confusing. Our temporary supplementary antecedent stimulus. And what's really important in this definition right off the bat, come on in, is temporary. They're temporary. They shouldn't be always in place. Over time, we should be working to fade them away, that we shouldn't always be using them throughout our work with our individuals. They're antecedent stimuli that we have mentioned, so they belong in the antecedent section of your behavior support plan. And they're used to occasion a correct response or a correct behavior in the presence of a natural SD. And what is a natural SD? Well, for instance, when I'm ready after I use the bathroom to wash my hands, the sink is the natural SD or signals that reinforcement is available, right? So the sink is the natural SD. And we want our VIPs after they use the restroom to be able to go to the sink and use the sink as independently as possible without any additional prompting from staff. So that's what we mean by natural SD. That'll eventually control the behavior because we want that sink to control that behavior. We want our VIPs to engage in hand washing when they approach the sink, not be required of us prompting them to wash their hands. And there's two types of prompts that we should be aware of in our work. One is a response prompt. And what do we mean by the word response?
They respond to it.
Right, but what is a response? Sue?
I don't know, like a verbal comment?
A response is, it's what we say a million times a day. It starts with a B. Behavior. Yeah, it's so easy. A response is just another word for a single instance of a behavior. To cue a correct response. So we have response multiple times in this definition. Three main forms of response prompts are verbal instruction, modeling, and physical guidance. So those are the prompting that we would use. So verbal prompts, we're very used to those. We might give our friends verbal prompts, if they forget to do something. We may give our VIPs verbal instructions to wash their hands, perhaps. We may engage in model prompts. And what is a model prompt? Yeah, we're doing the response that is the same as the response we're looking to see. And finally, we could consider a category of prompting to be physical guidance, where we do what with the VIPs? Hand over hand is a type of physical guidance, right? So we can think about these three categories of response prompts as a way to help teach, because we need behaviors to occur in order to reinforce them, in order to provide reinforcement. So if behaviors aren't occurring, we can't reinforce them. We can't do our teaching. So these are ways to get behaviors to occur. The second category, does anyone have any questions about response prompts? And what we mean by response prompt is that we are engaged in a behavior in order to get a behavior from the VIP we're working with. Hey, Carrie. So when we come into work, when I'm leaving for work, my wife to me might say, don't forget your lunchbox, which I'm likely to do. What kind of prompt would that be? Verbal prompt. And hopefully she doesn't have to do that every day because that would probably annoy her a great deal. And then I kind of learn, hey, don't forget my lunchbox after a few times of that occurring, I hope. Tell her to start feeding her prompts. And then we have stimulus prompts. So what do you think a stimulus prompt is?
Like a sign telling you to wash your hands.
Yes, so something in the environment that we're adding. Remember, it's a temporary supplemental antecedent stimuli. So it's not just a behavior from staff, but it could be a stimuli that we add to the environment that would evoke behaviors. And we'll get into some examples of what they are. Very simply, a lot of times, signs are great antecedent prompts to generate behaviors. What's a sign that we may see that could cause behaviors to occur? What's that?
Bathroom.
Okay, okay. So you're talking about sign language.
Yeah.
I just mean like a sign, like this sign,
Oh,
right? Right. That's what I mean. But
stop.
that would be a good model response prompt, Sue.
Okay.
Right? Because we're engaged in a behavior to get a behavior from someone else, perhaps. So what's it? But this is a temporary antecedent stimuli that might generate a behavior, right? Go ahead.
Like she's saying bathrooms, like a bathroom sign, like the one has a skirt on it for female and the one has pants for
Okay,
female.
but is that temporary?
We could put something on it to enlarge it to make
There
it
you go.
temporary.
So good thinking, Natalia, right? I got your name right this time. So yeah, so we can make that sign bigger. We could accentuate. You guys like that word? Accentuate the skirt on the woman's room and show the pants for the man on the men's room sign. And we can make that very large. We could change the color of that, right? We can make it very noticeable to the eye when we're doing our teaching. And then what should we do, Natalia?
Slowly bring it down, like smaller and smaller until we can fade it away.
Yeah, so these stimulus prompts need to be faded in that way too. Great example, and I appreciate your participation. Thank you. All right, let's continue. So there's risks to using prompts. We want to use them. We want to use them, but we want to make sure they are temporary because there's risk of prompt dependency. With the application of response and stimulus prompts, people could become dependent on these prompts. And I see that quite frequently in our work. When I'm working on the day program floor, I see someone using the same prompt with the VIP over and over for months and months and months. And I don't see any attempt to fade these prompts. And that is a big risk with using prompts. Sure, we are getting the behavior that we like, so it's very reinforcing as practitioners to be using these prompts. But if we don't make an active attempt to fade prompting, our VIPs are at risk to become prompt dependent. Another word for this is kind of learned helplessness, right? Where we kind of wait around and wait for that help to come around. Because essentially, what is the prompt doing? Making the behavior easier to accomplish. And when we were in school, we might have had a difficult math problem, and we might have waited around for the teacher to come around and help us with that problem, right? If the teacher didn't start to fade her prompts or his prompts, we could have not developed our independent math skills and been reliant on that teacher to come around for assistance. Can we think of another example? It could be anything. Go ahead.
Skinner's box with the cat.
Yeah. So what's the example?
So it's been a long time. Yeah, I'm drawing a blank.
That's okay.
I know I remember Skinner's box, but I don't exactly remember the setup and how it was.
Yeah, the operant chamber,
Operant chamber.
right? Yeah, of course. So, I was thinking of something more simple in our example, like maybe like like laundry, right? Maybe like the laundry basket's filled, and to me and other people that might signal, hey, I need to complete my laundry. But we're going to wait around until someone comes around and takes the laundry basket down, maybe throws it into the laundry bin, and then we start our laundry. And hey, this person made this behavior a lot easier for me. But they kind of provided like a prompt to get me to do it, right? So that could be an example.
For me, it just sits there.
Nobody prompts me.
So what we need to do to remedy this issue, guys, is we need to establish stimulus control with frequent differential reinforcement of behaviors in the presence of absence of the SD condition. So that's pretty confusing. What does that mean in layman's terms? We got to change it up so they don't get used to it. How do we change it up? Whatever you think. Whatever you want to say.
So, like, let's say someone has a really hard time waking up in the morning, and every morning you're like, you get pancakes if you wake up. So you start cooking the pancakes, they smell the pancakes, and then they're like, oh.
Okay.
But then after a while, they're gonna get bored of pancakes, or if they don't get bored of pancakes, you might get bored of making them. So you'd be like, oh, all right, well, you get bacon today. No pancakes, but bacon if you get up even better than you did yesterday, and just like slowly increase what they want.
I like what track you're on, and I really like how you are varying your reinforcements. I really like that. But I want to get sick of pancakes, by the way. I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding, because yes, we would. And I love how you're varying your reinforcement to make sure you're providing effective reinforcement. So that's very good thinking. So what we mean by this is we need to use differential reinforcement in order to encourage independence in our VIPs. How can we use differential reinforcement to fade our prompts?
So, for example, if you start off with the edible reinforcers, you can fade it out to be a verbal reinforcer.
Right? We can fade our reinforcement. How can we use differential reinforcement to fade our prompts?
They don't know when they're going to get it, so it's not scheduled anymore. You're just like, so instead of giving them like extra praise every time they, I don't know, clean up their toys after they make a mess, you would maybe do it every 3 times, or and then extend it to every 5 times. So you're extending the amount of time between that reinforcement, but they're looking forward to getting it, or they don't know when they're going to get it, but they know eventually it's going to come. They just don't know when, but they're continuing to work to try and get that reinforcement.
So we could change the schedules of reinforcement, which is a good tactic to do as behaviors start to maintain. Totally agree. What I mean by providing differential reinforcement, what do we mean by differential reinforcement? Look at those 2 words.
So my thought was, if, like, say you're on a verbal prompt, or say you're on a physical prompt and you want to fade to a verbal prompt, you're going to use differential reinforcement by making the reinforcement better when they are either using a lesser form or independent.
Yes, exactly what I was thinking too, Grace, and that's totally correct. What we mean by differential reinforcement, and guys, with all these ABA terms, I break it down to be so easy to remember. All I mean is different reinforcement. That's differential reinforcement, different reinforcement. So I'm going to provide a different reinforcement for a more independent response. So if my VIP, if this VIP I'm working with is washing their hands with a physical prompt that they're doing hand over hand, and I could use the sink next to them and model that behavior, and I see that behavior from my VIP, what should I do? Make a big deal out of it, right? I'm going to provide the highest level of reinforcement for that more independent response. And I'm the prompted response that we're kind of at now, I'm going to provide what? Yes. Come on, all you guys can participate here. I'm going to provide less reinforcement for a prompted response, and if I could fade my prompt, I'm going to provide a higher level of reinforcement, right? Because when we use prompts, we're making a behavior easier. Why would I engage in a behavior that's harder to get the same reinforcement? Would you? If I told you I'm going to pay you, and I always change it to money because we think about this quite frequently. If I told you I'm going to help you with this task and I'm going to pay you $20, and then I say, or you could do it on your own and I'm going to pay you $20, what are you likely to do? What are you likely to do, John?
Try to get the $20.
You're going to get it either way, but would you rather my help? Say you're going to have to cut this huge lawn today after work. You have this huge lawn, and I'm like, hey man, I'll bring my lawnmower, I'm going to help you out, I'm going to do half of it, and you're going to get paid the same. Or you could do it on your own. What are you likely to do?
Right, in the immediate you'll want the help, but in the long term it'd be better for you to do it on
Well, sure, but better, but what are you going to choose?
to have you help.
Yes, exactly. So what if I changed it to be this? John, I'm going to pay you $100 if you do it on your own, but if you need my help, I'm only going to pay you $20. What might you choose in that occasion?
You might choose the 100.
You will choose the 100, and I would make that number a number you would choose because I want you to be independent with this task. I don't want you to need my help. And that's what I'm talking about here, guys. When I mean reinforcement, I mean I'm going to dish out the best reinforcement for a more independent response. So our VIPs are much more likely to engage in that independent behavior. If I provide the same reinforcement, like our lawn mowing example, if I'm with my help, our VIPs are likely to become prompt dependent. They're likely to always need our help because they get the same reinforcement, whether we help them or not. Why would they ever not want our help? Does that idea hit home? So what I mean by different reinforcement is we're providing a different reinforcement for a more independent response. And the different reinforcement is a much better reinforcer than what we would deliver for a prompted response. Does that idea hit home to you guys now? You guys have any questions about that idea? And please ask, because it's so important for our work. All right, let's continue. So guys, these are some of the ways we can also reduce our prompts or fade our prompts and that we should implement in our behavior support plans and in our work. So not only are we providing that differential reinforcement, we're providing more reinforcement for a more independent response, but we're also going to be using these strategies and these ideas to help fade our prompting. So let's get into them. This is a prompting procedure called most to least. And what we mean by most is we're talking about intrusiveness. So the most intrusive prompt to the least intrusive prompt. So at the bottom of this pyramid, we have a full physical prompt. And that would be considered the most intrusive of prompts. If we are engaged in a full physical prompt with a person, they are really requiring a lot of our assistance to complete this behavior. Think about, I think because it was a struggle for me, and it still is, ask Grace. Penmanship. It was always a struggle being left-handed. I live in a right-handed world. It was very tough for me to develop handwriting skills, and I really regressed now at the age of computers. But I remember my teacher coming over to me, and what did she provide to me? Hand-over-hand assistance. She helped me hold the pencil the right way, helped guide my hand across the page, helped me learn that behavior. And then did what when I did the behavior? Yeah, I wish. Maybe it would be better if she did that.
Verbal praise.
She gave, whatever. She provided reinforcement. And I love your ideas about it, by the way. Now, as I started to develop this skill, if I'm doing most to least prompting, what would she have done? Came and helped me less often by following this pyramid approach. And what she could do is provide a partial physical prompt. Maybe she guided me by my elbow at this time. Light physical prompt. Maybe she just touched my forearm to get the behavior going. Model gesture. Maybe she modeled the behavior for me. And then verbal prompt, pick up your pencil until the natural cue. Time for penmanship class. And I pull out my book and put the pencil in my hand. So over time, we are actively fading our prompts to the natural cue. And here's an example for clapping hands. And I love how this is presented on this pyramid. This clinician actually wrote and followed this, but wrote the behaviors, the prompting and the behaviors we're going to be doing to mimic what we're talking about here. So a full physical prompt is hand over hand to clap. I'm taking the VIP's hand as I'm clapping. Hold learner's wrists and forearms, and I'm encouraging that behavior. Tap elbows, light physical prompt. Model gesture, instructor claps. Verbal, clap hands. And then the person is clapping on their own. So doing this is only one step. What's the other step again? Yes, we're going to provide more reinforcement as we move up the pyramid. This double-pronged approach is very effective to change prompts, to fade prompts. This is most to least prompting. Do you guys have any questions with this? Anyone from online? Does anyone online have any questions? Or anything to add? So guys, when you're working on the floor or working with anyone, encourage them to try to fade their prompting by using this double-pronged approach. Don't let them continue the same prompting over and over again each and every day. It's a disservice to our VIPs to do so. All right, let's continue. Most to least. Least to most. So here's a great prompting strategy where we're kind of going to do the opposite. We're going to use the same pyramid, and we're going to start by using a least to most method. So here I'm going to move up the pyramid until I get the behavior I like. So for instance, I have a natural cue. We approach the sink. I do not see the behavior that we're looking for of washing hands. Wash hands. I still do not see the behavior I like to see. So now I'm going to try the model gesture. I'm going to wash my hands and see if that encourages the behavior. And it does. I'm going to provide reinforcement. And then I could start here and use a most to least method to fade this away. Because now I know exactly where my VIP stands. Right? I don't need to start all the way up here if my VIP's right here. And this is a great way to test to see what prompting level we should be using. And then we could fade it out by using most to least. You can continue to do this method as well. You could just continue to do this method and keep trying to start with the least intrusive prompt and move up until we get the behavior we like. Excuse me. And still using the differential reinforcement approach. Least to most. And here's an example to touch blue, and probably like a blue card. So we start up here because we're using least to most now. And the natural SD is someone saying touch blue. They don't engage in the behavior. Then and obviously that's the verbal cue is the natural SD in this case. We're going to say point to blue card. The VIP, that's the model gesture. The VIP does not engage in that behavior. There's no light physical prompt for this behavior. Then we're going to guide learner by the forearm to touch the blue card. And then they do engage in the behavior. We provide reinforcement in the form of maybe verbal praise. Then the next time it's time to touch blue, I'm going to start up here again. Touch blue and see if they engage in that behavior before I move to that more intrusive prompt. Any questions with least to most prompting? Why would you use most to least, would you say, compared to least to most? Go ahead.
To find out where somebody is. So if you're doing it for the first time, you don't want to start maximum plus.
I love that idea. I think that's so true. And especially working with our adults. Our adults can be around these behaviors for a very long time. So they probably have some exposure to this behavior. So to test to see where they're at, a least to most method is a brilliant way to test to see where they are. And I think that's what and that is exactly what I'm thinking about, Carrie, because if someone is brand new to a behavior, they have no experience with it, a most to least is a good way to start. If a VIP has some experience with it, they were exposed to this behavior throughout their life, a least to most is the way to go. Any questions about least to most and most to least? Does it make sense? This pyramid would be very impactful to keep in your records with your work. Yes, thank you. Okay, let's continue. Time delay prompt. Okay, this is very easy. And we use this a lot when teaching MANs and TACs and things like that. The time between the SD and the prompt is increased over time. So what do I mean by that? The natural SD, and let's go back to our example, the sync. The natural SD is the sync. The sync signals reinforcement is available. And I'm using a verbal prompt. In this method, we use the same prompt that's likely to generate the behavior. So maybe it's like time to wash our hands, and then the person engages in washing the hands. Provide reinforcement. The next time I go to the sync, and I'm going to wait 3 to 5 seconds before offering my prompt. 3 to 5 seconds go by, so we don't see the behavior. What are we doing? Go ahead. Yes! We're going to offer that prompt. And we get the behavior again. Provide reinforcement. We approach the sync a third time. Now what are we going to do? Wait again. We're going to wait 5 to 7 seconds. And then this person engages in the behavior at 5 seconds with no prompting. What are we going to do? Dish out the strongest reinforcer. I'm going to jump to the moon, throw a party for this person. Right? So as I'm fading my prompts, I could use the dimension of time to fade my prompts. And I worked with a VIP that I waited a very long time before I offered a prompt because I believe this person can do it. And I want this person to become independent. So I'm going to continue to increase. And I've waited 20, 30 seconds before delivering my prompt. And do you know, sometimes I would give a prompt and they would say it at the moment I give the prompt. So fading your prompts using a time delay, you don't have to consider that pyramid. Use the prompt that's likely to generate the behavior. And then fade it by just increasing the time before you offer the prompt again. And that is a time delay prompt. Time delay fade procedure prompt. Do you guys have any questions about this? Choose a prompt that's reliably evoking the behavior. And there's no changing your what prompt you're using. Do you have a question, John?
Yeah, so the time
Sure.
delay, it's more so if you know they know the skill, but it's whether or not they remember to do it or they know that it's the appropriate time to do it, so you're giving them a chance to do it on their own.
Exactly correct. We are just waiting before we offer that prompt. Many times I see practitioners want to jump the gun with these prompts. And I understand why, because they're reinforced to get that behavior. So they want to offer that prompt that's likely to get the behavior. So this is a method that we're just going to wait it out. We're going to try our best to wait it out, that hopefully our VIP will engage in that independent response on their own. So fading your prompts this is a great, easy way to fade your prompts. It's important you're consistent with it as well, especially with all these strategies. Any other questions or comments about time delay prompts? Great antecedent for your behavior support plan.
Would that be like with Brian when he asked for the snack and we put 15 minutes down on the timer? Would that be considered time delay?
Nope. So it'd be like,
For a snack?
so Brian's making a request for something?
Well, he points to the alarm
Okay.
indicating that he wants a snack, so.
So say he's pointing to the snack, and we're asking him to make a communication response. And in the past, I might say, point to your PEX chart, or give me a sign, or say snack, right? And we might offer that prompt. And then Brian's likely to engage in that behavior, right? And then we give him the snack. In this case, what I'm going to do is wait 3 to 5 seconds at first to see if Brian will use this communication method first. And if he doesn't, then I'm going to offer the prompt. Touch your card for snack, and then I'm going to deliver the snack. As I'm teaching, I'm going to slowly increase that time before I offer that prompt again. So the next time Brian takes me over to a snack, I'm going to wait 5 to 7 seconds before I'm like, touch your snack card, and to see if he'll do it on his own. And the idea here is that we're fading our prompts away. We don't want to keep offering Brian this prompt. We want him to be able to, because we know him, So it's like, okay, well, and that's what I hear sometimes. Mike, we know this person. We know he wants a snack. But it's like 99.9999% of the population doesn't know him. And it would be great if he could communicate to the whole audience, not just us. So we want to fade these prompts away. So think what we're talking about with the time delay is fading the time between offering the prompt. Biting our tongue for a few minutes before we give the answer to our VIPs. Not a few minutes, a few seconds before we give that answer to the VIPs. To see if they'll respond independently. And that's the idea. We want our VIPs to respond more independently than previous. Okay. Any other questions about time delay prompts? Great questions. I appreciate your participation. Graduated guidance is the last response feeding method that we would consider when working with our VIPs. And what do we mean by graduated guidance? Well, it's a prompting technique in which physical guidance is provided only when needed and faded as immediately as possible. So we're going to provide physical guidance as needed, but immediately fade assistance per behavior. Begin with shadowing the learner closely. So of course I'm going to do an assessment. I'm going to see what parts of this task they're struggling with. A lot of times we have a VIP in Mountaintop and I see this graduated guidance prompting happen with this person with brushing teeth, right? And I see the clinicians providing physical prompting only when needed, only with certain steps of this task. And when the VIP starts to be independent, they're fading away. They're stepping away. If the VIP started to struggle, they're swooping in from behind and helping again. As the VIP starts to become independent, they're fading away. And by fading away, I'm like literally trying to walk out the door. I'm trying to get rid of myself. So the VIP will engage in this behavior more independently. If I see them struggling with any of the steps, I'm going to swoop in and provide assistance. Once they start to become reliably engaged in the behavior, I'm going to swoop away again. Graduated guidance, another very easy, effective method. And we always want to try to prompt from behind as well, because our presence in the vision of our VIPs is also something that needs to be faded. So prompting from behind is a great strategy as well to be working on. So that's graduated guidance. And I might do an assessment, and I always would do an assessment first, to figure out what areas of this behavior the VIP would struggle with. So I could be ready to unleash my physical guidance when needed, and then fade away when the VIP starts to engage more independently. Any questions about graduated guidance? Well, there's more. Increased distance, we talked about this. Changing location of physical prompts, then proximity of the prompt. That's called spatial fading. We're going to slowly fade ourselves away until we're out the door, down the street, at the coffee shop, eating lunch, and the VIP's brushing their teeth on their own. Prompt immediately if an error or no response. So we're going to swoop in if we start to see a mistake. If we see no behaviors, if the person's not engaged in a response or a behavior, we're going to swoop in and start providing that physical assistance again. Good to use for behavior chains. What do we mean by behavior chain? Go ahead. Go ahead, Jillian.
Like steps, like certain steps to remove yourself from that guidance.
Yeah. So so thinking about teeth brushing, what are the steps that go into that behavior chain?
Step up to the sink, turn on the sink, grab your toothbrush, toothpaste on the toothbrush.
So a lot of steps, right, that we may need to provide more assistance for some and fade away for others. So they're great for behavior chains. Allows some more flexibility, right? It's not as rigid as like most to least, least to most. I really like time delay prompting. I just think it's, especially teaching communication, it's a great method, especially for our folks that are very echoic. When you feel the learner responding on their own, reduce prompting. We talked about that. Carefully attend to the child or adult's movements to learn when more intrusive prompts may be needed. Any questions about graduated guidance? So we learned about 4 methods today. Anyone online have any questions? Cool. Thank you, Diego. We learned 4 methods before we get into stimulus prompts. Just kidding. We learned 4 methods, most to least, least to most, time delayed, graduated guidance. Guys, this belongs in your antecedent section of your behavior support plan. And when we're working with our VIPs, what are we trying to do? With these methods. Yes, fade these prompts. And what are we going to do when we see a fade happen with the reinforcement? How? I'm glad we're talking about this once more. How are we going to how are we going to provide the different reinforcement? Yes, differential reinforcement, which means what, Miriam?
Different.
Yes, what's different about it?
Everything.
Not everything.
You do different reinforcements and you do it at different times.
So what are we providing for a more independent response? Remember John's lawnmower example, mowing the lawn. What are we providing? Yes, a better quality of reinforcer for a more independent response. John's going to get $100 if he mows the lawn by himself. He's only going to get $20 if he needs my help. Right? So don't forget about that. Differential reinforcement is a key part to prompt fading, along with these prompt fading strategies. And the differential reinforcement belongs in what section of the behavior support plan? Consequence. Differential reinforcement. When does reinforcement occur? In the consequence section of the behavior support plan. This is a kind of a tricky question, so don't beat yourself up over it. Now we're going to talk about stimulus prompts. Stimulus prompts are temporary antecedent stimuli that aren't a behavior from staff. They're something I'm going to add to the environment to generate a behavior. And they're temporary, just like our other prompting we reviewed. And there's a few different types. There's more than this, but these are some of the more common ones. Position prompts. Correct the correct choice closer to the client or VIP. So when I'm doing cards, what can I do with if I see a VIP and I'm just teaching them to select an activity on a card and I'm saying pick Connect 4 and they're not getting it right, what can I do to help prompt them using this position prompt?
Just move it a little bit closer to show.
Put the car closer to him. Thank you, Julie and Diego. Yes, we're going to push the car closer to them. And how would we fade that over time?
Put it back into the pile.
Yeah, put it back in the array. Put it back into the array as they start to have success. We're going to talk about redundant prompts. One or more stimulus or response dimensions. We're going to alter one or more stimulus or response dimensions, color, size, or shape, and are paired with the correct choice. And we talked a little bit about this with the bathroom sign. We're going to really accentuate the skirt and accentuate the pants. How might we do that? Color. Make it more colorful. Tracks the eyes. What if we're teaching money? What might we do with the size? Make what bigger? The coins, make it bigger. What would we do with the dollar bill? Yes, and what would I, so because the dollar bill looks very similar. We're very trained in it by now. But think about when we first learning dollar bills. Don't they look very similar? They're kind of all the same size. They got an old dude on them. They're green, right? What is important to look at? The number. Yeah. So what might we do to that number? Make it big. Make it big. It's very attractive to the eyes. As that person starts to have success answers, what would we do to that number? Shrink it back to normal. Redundant prompt. And we talked about size, color, shape. Let's look at, I think we do have some examples of these if we can continue in the presentation. And oh guys, one important part of stimulus prompting is it's much easier to fade stimulus prompting than a response prompt. So if you could default to a stimulus prompt, this should be done over response prompts. Why are stimulus prompts, would you think, easier to fade? I could just think of one reason.
They're tangible, they're right in front of you, you can actually see them.
Sure, you could see them. They're tangible.
Routine is that point?
What?
Like, once you finally get them to
Excuse
do
me?
the behavior, it'll be a routine.
It'll be a routine, it'll be a behavior that's reinforced. Yes, but why are these prompting easier to fade? Think about all the people in our VIPs' lives. And can you imagine being like, hey, we're using most to least. We're on partial physical prompt right now. We're trying to fade to model gesture. I have to teach this to every person in their life that's going to practice this behavior with them. A lot more room for error and a lot more room that someone's going to use a more intrusive prompt. With stimulus prompts, it's already kind of set up in the environment. There's a lot less room for mistakes to be made like that. So stimulus prompts are much easier to fade. And in my opinion, kind of more enjoyable, to me at least. I like stimulus prompts. I think they're cool. And they kind of occur with no one, they could occur with no one around. Think about there's a positional prompt. We're trying to get into a gym routine. We want to go to the gym after work. We keep forgetting our bag, our gym bag. What are we going to do to help remember?
Put it closer to the door.
Put it closer to the door. I'm going to put it in my way so I stumble over it when I'm leaving. Much more likely I'm going to engage in taking my gym bag now.
Put it in your car.
Put it in my car. That'd be even better, right? I mean, I actually have my bike today. I didn't even think of this, but now that it's brought up, I broke a spoke at Francis Slocum the other day, and I wanted to go repair the wheel. So I'm like, and I kept forgetting my bike. So last night I put it right by the door. And guess what happened today? I engaged in that behavior. It's right on the back of my truck. All right?
Hopefully you don't forget when you leave today to go do it.
I won't, because it's like right in the rear view. I'll be like, whew, there it is. Yes, but just some more examples of positional prompts and redundant prompts. Let's continue, please. So this is an example of a prompting method to teach mathematics. And we always get confused by this slide, exactly what they're trying to teach us. But what they did here is they include people, right? And this is the antecedent stimulus, the stimulus prompt, that is to help the student learn mathematics. And what did you say, Grace? How do we do this? But the idea is that they use these people to teach mathematics. I'm not a math teacher, guys. I apologize about that. But I always say, what do I say at work? I'm like, you have to be a mathematician to work here. But anyway, go ahead.
They're trying to figure out like what 7 minus 2 is, so they're taking the 2 apart from the 7.
Ah.
And that goes down, and it brings them back together.
Yeah.
See, I would.
I don't know what's going on
So-
there.
They're trying to separate it because 7 and 2, right?
Yeah.
Or wait, 1, 2, 3, 4.
That's fine.
Okay,
We
5,
have
2,
7.
whatever.
So it's
Whatever.
addition. They're trying to show
Yes.
the addition, and then they have it all together. So that
And
you can
if you taught a youngster or you were in school recently, you may have learned these like touch points. Like they didn't do that in school when I was a kid, but they do these touch points to help the kids.
we use a circle.
Yeah, we use the blocks.
Circle to separate.
Yeah.
All right, guys. But what I want you to pay attention to is what do they do with the stimulus prompt over time?
Fade it.
And they fade it. Look at bam, 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 bam. As we move down, now look at and to what? And what's only remaining? And what did we call that? What did we call? This isn't the behavior. What behavior is this?
The product. I don't know. It's the prompt.
The natural what? Natural SD. This is the natural SD. These are temporary antecedent prompts that we're going to fade away over time until we only have the natural SD. Very good, you guys. Yeah. All right, let's continue. So guys, there's some examples. We talked about a few. We showed you one example of stimulus prompts. You could be very clever. One time we were teaching a VIP to put their shirt on the right way. we thought about what do we look at to put a shirt on the right way? The tag. You heard this before. I could tell. So the tag, right? And what do we do? What can we do to the tag to make it? And what do we say? We make a rule up. Tag in the back. Tag in the back. And what do we do to help the VIP see the tag?
Put a sticker on it.
Yeah. What was it?
Color it.
All those are acceptable answers. Good job, you guys. I could also make the tag huge. I could also put a fluorescent sticker on it. And then fade it away to the natural SD, the natural tag. Right? Can you guys give me another example of what we might do? I see this, I'll give you an example after I ask you the question. Teaching someone to use like a laundry machine. And we use this on the floor with a VIP. And maybe this wouldn't be temporary for this VIP, but we were teaching him to use a microwave. This person's vision impaired. What did we do to help teach this person to use?
Put a little button there.
We put a,
Fill it.
yeah, how beautiful. How beautiful was that? We put a little button that they could feel to press the buttons. And maybe we wouldn't fade that one because this person has a vision impairment. The natural SD could have been these buttons for him. But what I see a lot, I think about maybe it's not super funny, but when we're working with maybe someone that's new to technology, and I'm thinking about like my grandma. She had this remote, and like back in the day, I'm sure the remote was like 2 buttons. As technology advanced, what happened to the remote? There's 1 million buttons on it. What do we do for grandma to ensure she engaged in right responses?
You put a little post-it note on the buttons that she used to click, and that's it.
Yeah, but we took it further than that. We taped that mother up. The only buttons she could press were the correct ones then after that, right? Right? And we should have been nice to grandma and faded that, but we just left it on there. We didn't know what we know today, so rest in peace, grandma. So when people make a mistake, because mistakes are likely to happen. Mistakes are likely to happen to our VIPs, but we need to use the same prompting method to help teach them. When we use a less intrusive prompt, a mistake is even more likely to occur. So we could follow this error correction procedure to help ensure our VIPs are successful. Because what can an error do or a mistake do? What does it when we make a mistake, what does it cause us to feel like? Sad, frustrated, upset. And that's kind of a punishment effect that causes us not to want to engage in that behavior again. Right? But we don't want that to happen. We want to teach our VIPs. We want them to be successful. So we could use this error correction procedure to ensure they are successful. We don't want our VIPs to make a mistake twice. Pretty much. A mistake is made. What I like to do is break eye contact. So what I'm doing is removing the attention. And you could hold up your hand to indicate an incorrect response, not necessary for all our VIPs. And what I'm going to do is increase my prompt level. So say we're at a verbal prompt, a mistake is made. Now I'm going to offer a more intrusive prompt, which would be what on our pyramid chart?
Model gesture.
Yes, model gesture. Exactly right. So now I'm going to offer a model gesture after waiting a few moments. I don't want to chain in an incorrect response. And then provide reinforcement. So what I'm doing is I'm kind of moving back up on my pyramid hierarchy and providing a more intrusive prompt to ensure my VIP is successful. If we're at model gesture and the VIP makes a mistake or doesn't respond, I might wait 3 to 5 seconds and then do what? Light physical or full physical. I'm doing washing hands, my VIP is making a mistake or not engaged in the behavior. With the model gesture, I'm going to move over and provide a hand-over-hand assistance to help them, and then provide reinforcement, and then hopefully fade from there. Okay? Any final questions about prompts and prompt fading? Remember, they're temporary. Remember, they're antecedent stimulus. And remember how we use differential reinforcement to promote prompt fading, saving the best reinforcement for a more independent response. Think of the lawnmower. Never forget the lawnmower. Any questions, guys? Was today's training helpful? All right. Thank you guys for all you do, and have a great rest of your day.